Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a human-loving, fast-talking, street-smart, slam-dancing Moogle.
Tim Longo.
You didn't get that.
I don't think I got that.
You have to follow Lone Wolf for that one. So
that's related to the Yeti stuff or something.
It's not the Yeti. So I was trying to find how to get to the Yeti because I assumed that's what I could do there, but I could not. It turns out the thing that I was supposed to find was Lone Wolf. And I finally found him and chased him down. There's actually a real choice that happens there. A very funny choice in the way it's presented. And you didn't do this, but so I'll tell you. But you can follow Lone Wolf is like hiding out in one of the houses in Narsha, and he's in there like counting his treasures or something like that, and he's really happy about something he got or whatever. And you go in and he runs, and you can go take all the stuff out of his chest, and then you can leave. And you can follow him back through Narsha up to where the Esper is, up north of the town. So you can basically follow him all the way up there. And he basically has a Moogle hostage. And the Moogle is in his arms, and he's like, step back, or the Moogle gets it. He doesn't think he says it exactly that way, but that's the implication. And the Moogle shakes itself free and throws them apart. So they're both on like either side of the promontory, like teetering on the edge. And you basically have to make a choice right there, like which one do you save? Like you just mechanically, you just walk up to one or the other. And I did it both ways because I was very curious. You walk up to the Moogle and he joins your party.
Right. He's in the manual, so I figured there's,
okay.
Eventually you get one.
Yeah, if you walk up to the wolf, the Moogle drops off the cliff and no Moogle in your party.
Whoa.
and you get an item. So it was a very surprising moment. I went and I used the rewind facility to go back to that and do it and see what happened, each way, because it was unexpected. And a good moment. So I like that a lot.
Lone Wolf is actually in one of the cells, right? And in what's that town with maybe no, it's not Narshe. It's one of the towns has a prison basically, or a jail. And there's a bunch of bandits down there, but one of the cells has Lone Wolf in it. So I'd seen him before, and he said, "I'm Lone Wolf. I'm the Lone Wolf."
It's like Colingen or something, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, yeah, or South Figaro or something. But anyway, yeah. So I knew I recognized him when I saw him. I chased him up into the cave, but I didn't follow him. I didn't go up any further because I wanted to go to the gate. But anyway. So I wonder if that'll be lost to me now or not.
I think you could still get it now. I think it's yours. You still haven't lost that yet. I think you could, if you did it first thing, you'd still be able to get it. I think would be my guess from what I understand about what's going on in the world right now.
Well, now that I have an airship, I can get up
anywhere.
Quickly.
You could catch the Moogle before it falls.
Yeah.
We of course are talking about Final Fantasy VI. Now that we're a few minutes in, so probably good to let people know that. But whenever Moogles come up, it's a fair guess that Final Fantasies are involved. So So this time we had a bunch of story beats we want to hit for sure. We want to talk a little bit about some grinding I did and why my tactical grinding, some of the airship because now we have a little bit more freedom of movement, and some Esper stuff. Your pick. What do you want to go to first?
Well, I think let's see. What's the first city from Vector? Is it? There's a city before Vector that you go to, right? Because you fly over there. I have an occupied city on my list, on my notes here before you get to the factory, but I don't remember what that is.
Anyway. Is it Albrook? I think it might be Albrook.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. It's very French Resistance. Like the soldiers are in the pub, and there's like a music.
Right.
Very good.
It's either Albrook or maybe Miranda, I think is the other one.
They're very good music in there, and it's
Yeah.
and some people talk about an Atma weapon, which I don't know what an Atma, but sounds like some sort of legendary weapons. But yeah, that eventually leads to the factory. So I mean, just taking it.
I have one now, so
You do? Oh, interesting.
yeah. I forget who I gave it to.
I wonder where you got it. Interesting.
I think I have an Atma something.
Yeah, this one NPC said something.
Yeah, now I'm wondering if like I have that wrong. No, I think that's right.
This one NPC said something about these two legendary Atma. Is that a Final Fantasy thing? Atma weapons?
Usually it's Ultima.
That's right.
Weapon.
The ultimate, right?
Yeah.
Their terms are so weird sometimes. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, I just enjoyed Vector as that whole sort of factory facility. I know that you mentioned in pre-show that somebody on the stream was likening it to that robot factory in Chrono Trigger. It felt very Chrono Trigger to me, and I really like. I mean, I definitely. That is actually a very good example of my frustration with random encounters, right? Because that is, hypothetically, yes, any random encounter that I'm getting is helping me level up. And I know that generally is beneficial, but it's, as I've talked about before, I won't rehash it from previous episodes, but there's the psychological nature of random encounters, even though they are hypothetical, even though they are systemically beneficial to me or statistically beneficial. Anyway,
they don't let you pursue they don't allow you the choice of pursuing what you'd like to pursue is the problem, right? It's like if you're really hot to trot on the story, you're stuck and frustrated, or if you want to explore, you're stuck and frustrated. If you really don't care, right? If you don't have those as one of your goals, they maybe aren't so bad, and maybe that's been kind of why they don't.
Well, I kind of wish there was a Chocobo equivalent for interiors.
Right.
Now you can obviously get yourself into deep trouble probably by using that too much, but I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know, maybe they do this in the modern ones. I'm intrigued to know like how they handle this these days. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but Mark did send me a copy of 10, which are
12.
12. It was 12, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's a very modern version. So anyway, long story short, that factory section, that's the factory section is very much an exploration, puzzly kind of like find the route, right? Especially if you want to get all the chests. But in the middle of all that, you're getting random encounters and but I have really both those sections and a lot of the town sections. I've really enjoyed and appreciated the sort of the level design aspect of how they kind of hide paths basically, right? And like for instance in towns, there's towns with back doors that you can't see because of the isometric view, and you can go behind things, and sometimes there's secret things back there, or you need to get up on a bridge. And actually that's a section there's a bridge in Narche that you have to go out the back door of a building to get to the bridge, So I just have really loved that stuff. And this factory is a great example of going through pipes, and finding the loop that goes here and getting all the chests, and then finally eventually getting down
going into the trash compactor.
The trash compactor, yeah. Another Star Wars reference. I had that note as well. And the only downside I think of the section was that the save point, at least the only one I found, was after the Esper battle. So you get down to the trash compactor, and that Esper battle was fairly stressful for me. I didn't wipe or anything, but it dawned on me what would happen if I did.
Yeah.
Having to go through all that again, and it was weird to me that they didn't put the save before the battle, but but it was fine. But yeah, I did enjoy that section.
Yeah, I think there's one in the side room right off of there. It is a weird placement, right? I think there's like one of the rooms from there you or very nearby anyway you can save. Yeah, it's a weird.
Yeah, but I think it's blocked until you fight them.
No, I agree. Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah.
Often they do put them right before a battle, but anyway, it is before, and then you go through there and you meet Sid for the first time, right? So you have your Sid encounter. And then you have the vats and the sort of the discovery about the Espers, the rest of the Espers, and you get a bunch of them there.
Yeah.
So
and what a horrible thing they're doing, right? They're draining of their life energy to create this magicite, right? Or Magitek or whatever, I guess is where that comes from. Which is just, yeesh. It's it's pretty gruesome. I mean, there's a lot of, we've already talked about some other stuff in this game that's very mature in the sort of, if you stop to think about what's going on, it's like, oh, that's pretty grim.
You get away with a lot because of the 16-bit.
Because of the style.
They can hide a lot behind that. Yeah, for sure.
I don't think that a lot of Final Fantasy games, if they are rendered in today's level of detail, would fly as kids games.
Right.
Because, they, a parent can walk into a room and see, I can just imagine what we would do with that in AAA, like what that scene would look like and how gruesome those vats might be. And to really hit home the horror, there's something nice about the abstraction because you can sort of bring your own maturity level of horror to it, right? So a kid doesn't necessarily feel the same level of dread that we do as adults, right? They know it's, they know it's bad, right? I mean, I'm not saying that, kids don't have moral judgment or anything like that, but it's just, I don't think there's quite the depth of dread over what that, what seeing that would be,
mm-hmm.
and but that, when we make it explicit in sort of modern, representations and the sort of reality aesthetic, realism, super realism aesthetic, that becomes impossible to avoid, and then it doesn't sell so well to the children. So, but the market's different too. So,
yeah, I mean, I continue to be intrigued to know something that I will never know. I guess unless I watch, streams or YouTube videos of it or stuff. But kind of what is the tone of 15 or the 7 remake, and how do they, I don't know. It's such a weird, the franchise is so weird from an identity standpoint, and I'm getting better understanding of it from the few that we've played, the couple that we've played. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get bits and pieces, right? About 15, that it's like this road trip with this group of guys, and what? Why is it that? I'm so confused all the time about.
It's a very strange series, and I will say too, it has the sort of, it's not even specifically Japanese, but sort of Asian thing of, because Korean film cinema is like this, Hong Kong, where you just cover a huge palette of emotional things, right? It's not like there's slapstick comedy upside, absolute horror and dread, right? In a lot of,
I mean, Parasite.
Park Chan-wook or Parasite, was the other one I was going to go to. But also his other movie, The Host, right, where it's there's slapstick and then
monster,
and this monster just ate my daughter, or whatever, and it can and gross out stuff, and I mean they paint a lot more broadly in that way. And they kind of go all over the place. And I think that happens in the games as well. So it's hard to say, it's hard to pin down and say there is one thing, right? That this is what it's about, because there are so many things that it's about. But one thing it's always about is airships. So,
So, well, before we get to back to the airship, we do have a mine car section, which I thought was hilarious. Are they using, I think they must be using the Mode 7 stuff to fake that? Was that what that was? That it was a weirdly visualized section, but kind of cool for the time.
That's one of those. Yeah, well, so I actually, my grinding happened right before that, so that's why I didn't have trouble with those bosses.
Okay. We'll have to talk about that then.
Yeah, but right before you leave the facility, there's a section where you either fight like turrets that hang down from the ceiling. There's like a floating droid type thing. There's those little mini guys who look like jesters or something. And then there's the armed guards. They're just like blue dudes.
I never fought any turrets from the ceiling, though. What?
Really? They hang down. There's like usually 3 of them instead of 3.
No,
It's like a ball hanging down from wires. Huh. Okay.
No, I fought mechs like on.
Yeah, occasionally
like,
you get a mech as well. Yeah,
I got
Magitek,
mechs. I got the little
armored
guys, the guards, some dogs.
Well,
no
the guards,
turrets. Interesting.
the guards you can steal tents from.
Oh, that's what you were doing.
So there's a save spot in this hallway right after you've gotten the new Espers, and then so like there's a save spot, and then you in that hallway section, which is right before the minecart, I believe. Minecart. You it's just like, walk around a few steps, get another encounter, fight a few guys, steal their tents, maybe pick up some when they're dead as well, and then whenever you're starting to get low in health, you just go and use a tent. And you're like making 4 or 5 tents every time you go sleep. You pick up a bunch more tents. So it was like a good tactical place to grind, because it's like, well, I'll just get this resource that I can now just get here as many as I want, and I'll just do it for half an hour or whatever. So it was just a good place to grind. I mean, the XP was good too, but it was more like, oh, I'm getting these resources because I had been resource starved a lot. Earlier, getting to Zozo in particular. So,
interesting. So you found a little grinding loop there.
Yep, just something there that was like, oh, it's a virtuous circle. So, every now and again I have to go and heal and use a tent. It'll pick people up from being, quote unquote wounded, which would normally be killed or whatever, and other ones that you use the Phoenix down for, but I didn't have to burn those because I could just go use a tent.
A tent revives people who are wounded,
and it gets rid of status effects as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I had people who were imps, and I didn't have to burn.
Yeah, you just
green cherries in there. I just get in the tent. So
wow, that was a good spot.
Yep.
So what do you remember? Roughly what level ranges you're at then?
Oh, no idea.
Oh, okay.
No idea. Like, I don't really keep track of what level I am because it doesn't ever present that information to you. I keep track of other things that I'm doing, like how, I'm checking my Espers every so often to see if everything's at 100% and I can move them around and things like that. Get new abilities more than I do anything else. So.
Yeah, I do check my level. I mean, it's right there above your health when you go to the character screen. So I do take note of it. I'm around. I think my character ranges are around 21 to 23 or something like that. By the probably might be actually up to about 25 or so by the time I finish the gate section. But yeah, somewhere in the low 20s. So you're probably
couldn't tell
that.
you. Yeah, probably, but I honestly have no idea.
Well, the other thing related to that you mentioned pre-show is that you tend to be focused on physical attacks for the most part. You're not using entirely. A lot of. Yeah. So does that mean you're not even using like the special? Well, you're using tools from Edgar. It sounds like
which don't burn MP.
Capture.
Yeah. I use capture. Yep.
Which now does damage, which is nice. But like. Well, you didn't have Celis at that point.
I have Cyan rather, not Edgar. I have Cyan equipped with, he's dual wielding his sword, or he's two-handing his sword, so he does more damage.
Yeah.
And I use his sword tech all the time.
Okay, but still physical, yeah.
Yeah, and then whoever else, I just fight with whoever else. Unless, in that section I had Celis, and so I was using Runic a lot, so she would just absorb attack from the enemies, get a little MP. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So does that mean? So you don't have to worry. So you're basically not worrying about resistances then, because you're just physical attacks.
Yeah, I'm doing so much damage so quickly.
Why wouldn't you just always like? Because I'm using magic quite heavily on everybody now because they have Espers and they've learned some stuff like. Should I just switch to physical and like, why would you not? I mean, I guess if you get the right resistances, like I can do 1,000 points with one hit.
Yeah.
If somebody's
so can the
vulnerable.
chainsaw and the I forget what it's called, but the first level of sword tech, there's a dispatch. Does like 800 or something like that for me, maybe 900. It varies, right? So, but there's going to be a point where I'm going to need to use the magic, right? Because things are going to, they're going to resist. They're going to have shell or whatever.
So there are resistances to physical attacks.
There are buffs for physical attacks, right? Yeah, one of my characters actually, when he gets down to low hit points, he does shell.
I have that too.
Which reduces physical damage. So that'll take a 3-digit attack to a 2-digit attack. Basically 3 digits of damage down to 2 digits of damage.
Okay.
So that will come to play. I mean, I haven't needed it all that much yet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even starting to use scan more because of my magic emphasis, which is it's all very odd because typically in RPGs I don't tend to focus on magic that much. So I'm actually not sure why. I think I set a goal for myself playing this one that I feel like I didn't do enough of. I don't remember per se, but I have a vague memory that I didn't do enough of in Final Fantasy IX, and I wished I had. I think I played kind of the usual way that I would play because I know that the resistance system is so elaborate in these games, and it seems to be the case here too. Not elaborate, but I mean it's present, right? There's always going to be good ones and bad ones to use. And as soon as you use a fire attack on something that heals it, it's like you think to yourself, oh, okay, well,
whoops,
I better start thinking about this a little bit more, So I'm scanning stuff more often so I can understand their vulnerabilities and stuff. And I'm enjoying it. It takes some extra effort, but once you do it once, you kind of, if you can remember, then you're good. But then also as a segue, like your magic user could get taken away from you due to story reasons, and then
right.
So now luckily everyone's a magic user, so I was definitely confused by the Esper and magic acquisition system for a while, but now that I talked to that ghost that gives you all the tutorial on it, I think I understand it. So you can only use Espers once per combat.
You can only use their summon, right, once per combat.
Their summon, but if you have an Esper equipped, then that character will gain spells, like traditional spells, that are in that Esper's domain or something.
Right, yeah. And
or there's a list, basically.
You can look on the skill.
List.
Yeah, you can look on the skill screen for Espers, and then and you can look and see what the progress of your various things is. Yeah. I do.
So
that
the percentage goes up based on how many times. How does the percentage go up when you have an Esper?
I think it's number of combats or maybe number of enemies. There are multipliers there, like for how fast they go.
Okay, but it's not now. It's not based on how many times you use the Esper. It's just you have to have it equipped.
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to use the Esper at all. I mean, I don't. I'm just leveling up all the spells so that I have them. Like I know I'm going to want float. I don't remember why, but I'm going to want float. Because there's something, I don't remember what it is, but there's something, and I'm gonna want to have reflect, right? And there are some enemies who, because they have reflect on them, like they'll put on reflect shell, and it's like, okay, well in that case you want to have somebody in your party with reflect, so you can cast on them, and you can cast something on your party and it'll reflect to the enemy. and it'll go through. It's things like that are like, JRPG, BS that you gotta be aware of. And then there's one thing you were doing. There's another thing, I can't remember what the combo is, but there's like a thing where you can use Doom, and it will kill anything, but you have to first cast something else. Starts with a V, I believe. I can't remember the trick. I feel like you were doing it, and it just, and I think it's a bug. Like, I don't think or an oversight. I shouldn't say a bug. Like, I think they just missed the hole, right? They didn't notice.
That I was doing it, you mean? Or what do you mean?
Oh, I think you were doing the first part of it last time. What
with
is
the imp other... when I was imping people?
Oh, yeah. It's imp and doom. Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Okay.
Or something. Yeah. Maybe it's imp.
Imps. Yeah. I mean, imp.
Oh no, it's vanish doom. Okay. So if you cast vanish on an enemy, you can kill them with death spells. So.
Whoa.
Something to keep in your back pocket for later when you hit the really
Okay.
bad enemies. Vanish them, which you would think would be bad. They're invisible. You don't want that. And then you cast, a death spell on them, and turns out that even though they shouldn't be affected by it, they will be. So
weird.
Yeah, this is weird. It's like
all kinds of weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Cure being bad for zombies or whatever.
Right. I mean, so like summons, I remember when 7 came out, summons were kind of like part of the whole big deal, right? Because they were so elaborately rendered at that point, because like we talked about with the CD and PlayStation and all that stuff, and they like had big cutscenes and stuff. And I guess we saw some of that, or a lot of that in 9 as well. But here it feels like maybe they haven't quite gotten to their prominence yet. I mean, I feel like Espers, I've used them a few times, but I feel like the fact that you can, well, I guess once a battle is quite often.
I mean, they're doing the same. They're doing the 16-bit version of the summon that is in Final Fantasy VII, right? I mean, it's the character appears and then some effect happens.
Yeah, it's neat.
Right? So,
it's cool.
Yeah, it's neat. It's and you could see how that would move to 3D, where you'd see a fully realized character, and they really go over the top with Final Fantasy VIII when they bring them in. And one of the things in Final Fantasy IX they did was they gave you a toggle for like the frequency you were going to see the video.
Oh, yeah, right.
All right,
because they're just so long.
In 8, they didn't have that, and they weren't skippable, and they showed every time.
Yeah.
Not my favorite.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I guess I never want to use that again. I've seen that one image, 6,000 times now. I think I'm done. Yeah, it's very funny. But yeah, you can see that. I mean, I have started. I did use them more further on. I've started getting to the point where I like. When I first assigned them, you just had the 4, so I just had those 4, and none of what they did was super interesting to me. Like their main effect, but then I assigned other ones. Like I think it's Phantom that makes your party invisible, and I wanted to summon that because I wanted to see what happened, and then the invisibility stuck around for more than one combat, which was surprising to me. It might like once that character had summoned, I think he stayed invisible, maybe at least into the next combat. I'm not sure exactly what. So I've been playing more with their effects, less about the sort of fire and brimstone type effects, and more of the weird effects that they do. Now that I'm doing like Carbuncle and Shoat and Phantom and whatever the other ones are that I've got. So it's been fun to see those.
Do you, when you're you're generally streaming when you're playing, right?
Yeah, I didn't. I had a couple hours that I played today where I didn't stream because it was in the morning, and I didn't expect on Memorial Day morning a lot of people would be watching, but in general, yeah.
So what's I'm just curious, what is your interaction? I assume a lot of the people watching have played.
They have, yeah,
and probably are obsessed with this game, knowing some of our audience members. What's the interactions like? Are they helping you? Are you? No,
I generally prefer people not backseat like that, and I put that in my stream titles, like no hints or backseating, please. They have a hard time holding back, I think, with the game This Beloved, where they like, oh, you got to find this thing, I won't tell you what it is, but you got to stay here and find it. That's how I found Lone Wolf, was peer pressure, like running around like, what am I? And they're like, no, not in the mines, Okay.
I just accidentally found him, but every time I go to a town, even if I've been there before, I tend to go into every building anyway, just to, it seems like things can change sometimes. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think I can see some folks on my stream have been asking, like, am I going to stream the games we play, the games that I'm playing for the podcast? And so I might do that at some point, but I think it'd be fun to play to stream with people who are obsessed with these games from childhood. But anyway, yeah. So
yeah, I mean, it hasn't lessened the impact at all. I mean, it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, things still land, the way I would expect them to. So it doesn't really
Yeah.
the backseating never bothers me, even when it's, and it's very gentle, and people will even say, when people are like, hey, is it okay? Like, if I don't notice, people ask, hey, if it's okay if I tell you something, and I'll, other people will say, yeah, he prefers not, but
yeah, they take
whisper me and ask me what it is, I'll tell you if he would mind or not. So,
your own
people are self-policing. Yeah.
Crew of moderators. Yeah.
It's very, when you don't have, hundreds of people in, when it's a handful of people that you see all the time, you get to know each other pretty well. So,
yeah. So that basically leads to the first real version of the airship, basically, right? We have.
Well, tell me about the minecart, because you wiped on the minecart, you said.
Yeah. I think it really was a product of, like I was saying, my frustration with taking characters away, because a lot of my resource balance is focused on magic, right? And so when my main mage, who has cure, is taken away from me in Celis, and I'm left with just the 3 idiot dudes that I'm with, who are basically lost without her. So they're the only ones that were going through the mines, right? So I don't tend to necessarily worry about not having very many potions and things, right? Because I have her there. And I more stock up on like magic point replenishment, right? So when she gets low, then I can give her more magic, and she basically can endlessly cure people. So they've lost her, and so really it just was a product of whittling me down too much. It
was the Wasteland 2 problem, is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
your healer was gone, and oops.
Yeah, and it's not balanced for that, really, or I wasn't prepared for it, right? And again, that's my frustration of like, story reasons, which is a deep cut reference to a podcast that I think we both listened to at one point, or lore reasons, I guess.
Lore reasons.
And so yeah, that was frustrating, because I felt the tension building, because the minecart, not only that, but in the minecart, you can't actually go to your character screen in the middle between battles like you can most of the other times. So you couldn't even, you have to heal only in combat.
Battle. Yeah.
So it just kind of like wore me down, right? And then you get to that final boss, and I got him on the second try, but I did have to reload, and there's not like a shop or anything nearby, so I could grind like you did and try to collect, I guess, more potions that way or something, but that would take forever. So I think I was at the appropriate level, and I was generally fine. It just was the resources. So yeah, but I mean, the minecart is just yet another example of them. They just watched Indiana Jones, and they're like, we want to do this in the game. How do we do this?
Exactly.
And it's like, that's impossible. You can't do it. And no, yes, we can. We must find a way. And, and then they do. So, I mean, I just tip of the hat to them of like, yeah, you really did. That's amazing, So it was yet another like delightful surprise, unfortunately ending in tragedy for me, but it wasn't too much of a setback, because obviously you save right before that. So
right.
But the reward,
save again and again and again right before.
Yeah,
that,
right, exactly.
Grind for tenths.
Yeah, I wish I would have thought of that. It was a good one. But but I mean, getting to the airship is a bit of a reward, right, for getting through that section and escaping, which was fun. And then the airship itself is like, by the way, the music in the airship, when you go down below deck, is just amazing. I also want to mention, let's see, the factory music was also amazing. That piece specifically kind of had had a lot of like clinging and clanging, and kind of like the simulated equivalent in chiptune sort of equivalent. And then the airship music. That airship is huge as far as like, the different floors, and, as a level, if you're just running around on it. And it's cool. I don't know. It felt cool because it's like your home base. It's like the Falcon, right? It's like the Millennium Falcon, because you can reset your gear, and you can change your party out, and so I can see where
you can buy stuff, you can replenish.
I saw that. I guess I missed the buying stuff part.
They're on the bottom. If you keep going down, I believe.
There
Or
are
on the
people?
lowest. Yeah, they're 2 people.
I must have just missed them. I thought I explored everything, but anyway, yeah. So it's even bigger than I thought. So yeah, I mean, but obviously the game changer is flying around the map. I mean, and which I know is a staple of, right? It's like
Sure.
linearity, forcing you to go from zone to zone on foot, and then the sort of freedom that that you get when you can fly over that. And it works really well with the Mode 7 map, which, I still think that, they built that map and they're milking it, for all it's worth, because they have so many versions of you traveling across it, whether you're flying or under the sea or in an airship, so, but now it's just awesome because you just zip around.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's really cool how much mileage you can get out of a tile set, right? I mean,
yeah.
If you have this sort of hardware trick, right, at your disposal. So that's just wild. It's also wild that there's a whole new control scheme to fly the ship, which has not one but 2 different methods of like acceleration and turning. You can raise and lower and stuff. I was like, it's going through all this stuff, and they're like, "Do you have that?" And I'm like, "Not really."
Yeah.
What's the button to go? I guess A is to go. That's and the 2 triggers to turn. I guess that's all I really need, and B to land. I think you use X and Y maybe to climb and stuff, but there's also like the steering was all over the place. It was pretty. There's a
way to do quicker turns, yeah, or at least for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
that's correct. Yeah,
R1 and L1. Yeah, I mean, I'm on PlayStation, so it's all it's different.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. I just use the shoulders or whatever, the bumpers and the and A. That's all I ever do.
Yeah,
but there's more that you can do, and then B to land. But I was like, boy, that's a lot. Just like, it came and it's just like, do this and then also this, but and you can also do this if you want. I was like, whoa.
Well, it's a usual discrete gameplay problem, right? And it's like it's not like anything else. They're just like, well, we'll just make it up, sort of like the similar conversation we had about Ultima Underworld, right? Of like, well, nobody really knew how to do this yet, so we're going to make you click on buttons to turn your head. It's like, what?
Yeah.
But didn't hindsight 2020, we didn't know what mouse look was, so it's so weird to say that, but it was true. So yeah, so they didn't have the equivalent. I mean, I guess you kind of did in Mario Kart or something, right, where they had something they could look to, but that's more of a forward momentum kind of. Well, no, I guess you had to accelerate in that. So anyway,
yeah, and you could reverse. So
yeah. So it's cool. I mean, zipping across the map, makes you feel so powerful. So that's neat.
I mean, you are in the best airship in the world,
and the only airship,
and the only airship,
right? Yeah. Which is that's not a thing, right? There's usually not every. Like some of the games have multiple, like airships are more prominent. Well, even in 9, I feel like there are multiple.
Yeah, I think so.
Airships,
yes. Yeah. In general,
so just a specific thing to this one. I mean, I once we get to that point, I mean, it is awesome. The airship's great. I love it. I'm having a great time. This last session I really enjoyed in general, and there's a few sections coming up that we'll talk about briefly that I really enjoyed. I will say though that when I did get the airship and I was zipping around, I really got nostalgic for Chrono Trigger because their version of freedom is time travel and airship, so it's like, holy bejesus, it's like on 2 axes, and it's like, wow, that's, and so again, I threatened that I might play that again someday. Maybe I will in 20 years, but I was nostalgic for it because they're both good games. This is definitely a great game too, but that Chrono Trigger is still edging it out a little bit for me right now, unless something crazy happens in the last whatever half we have left that to dethrone it. But so far, I don't think it will. Mainly because of random encounters.
Yeah, you really hate them.
That's like 20% right there of the problem. But anyway.
That's true, because in Chrono Trigger they were visible on the map and you could try to avoid them. Yeah, that's
I just like the plan. I like that decision. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So then we go back to.
It's a device. I mean, it's probably worth talking. I mean, it is a divisive issue. Like,
Sure.
I mean, I know it is definitely a thing that has put a lot of people off on it. You know, but it's funny because we also had them in Baldur's Gate, and we barely talked about it.
Yeah. But it wasn't.
It was on fast travel, so you didn't know if when you fast traveled you were going to get an encounter or not. You know, and then you could reload and you might not get it. You know, so it's like, well, you could never have an encounter there if you wanted to.
They're just different enough, right? Because
they feel different. They definitely feel different. Yeah, I'm not arguing that they don't. Yeah,
but you're right. Yeah, there's similar similarities. But when it's really the combination of exploration and in fast travel situation, you're not necessarily exploring. You're just trying to get to a place. And here I'm like, discreetly walking around and having it happen. So, but anyway, so let's see. So then they go back to Zozo, and we get the Terra thing, which is, I thought was a nice surprise. It
was a lot more than I expected. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you immediately have a flashback sequence, and I've had one flashback sequence that you didn't have, and maybe vice versa with the whole Sabin, and Edgar thing, but that wasn't.
A lot of people apparently say Sabin. So
Sabin, okay, that actually makes more sense. Sabin, but that wasn't interactable. It was just basically cinematic. I don't remember there being much, or if any, but this was cool.
No, it was scripted. Yeah,
Terra wakes up and she kind of has her memory back, and she says she was raised in the Esper world or Esper land, and yeah, it was a nice sequence. You go back and you gain control of her father. You find out in the land. One thing I liked about that sequence is you're running around as him. And he looks like a creature himself. And you're meeting Espers that you've met before, but like in their home, at least the models, right? Like,
right.
Because you've just fought some in the factory. And so it's sort of like seeing the other side a little bit. They did some of this in Chrono Trigger too, where you see the other side, the other perspective, right? Of the story, which was very cool. And you're running around their village and talking to people, and there's this human who has been found, who you find out is Terra's mother, and they have a dance, if you know what I mean. At one point, I thought I was confused at first. I thought maybe this Madonna character was Terra. I didn't really quite understand what they were talking about, and then of course you realize that Terra is half Espa, half human. So there's that whole storyline pops in, and the baby, they have a baby. There's a literal baby on screen, which I loved too. So, I mean, what did you think of the whole sequence?
No, I thought the sequence was fantastic. I'm actually now kind of curious because I'm pretty sure you get Maduin is one of the Espers you got in the Magitek facility. And I don't think...
Oh, you might...
Because he's been sucked into the world too, right? At the end of that sequence.
Well, my impression was that he's dead. But, yeah, maybe not. I feel like they both got sucked in and died, but maybe not.
No, I think he made... I think it takes more to kill an Esper. I think you get him at the end. I think he's in the list of Espers that you have, and I have not assigned him to Terra, and I can't believe I haven't done that, because now I'm like, man, I wonder what happens.
If that's true.
If she says anything or anything like that. So I'm going to have to try that first thing. Next opportunity I have, because it didn't even occur to me. Because I just thought of him as me, right? And like I didn't associate him with the thing, but I'm pretty sure you do get him. I have to see what his summon is and whether anything happens when you summon him if you're Terra.
Also in your party, she has a new ability called Morph that transforms her into that Esper form. But I don't really understand what it does yet, because never worked well for me. So I don't know if you've tried that or if she's.
I haven't even done it. No, she is in my party, but I haven't done it.
So. Yeah, she turns into that glowing, persona version. That glowing one that flew through the sky, and she seems to have some sort of attack when she's in that, and then you can revert back. But I was fighting the sort of undead characters in the mines, and her attacks were healing them, so I stopped using it. But it's kind of cool now that you know her nature, that they integrated that into her gameplay,
right,
as an ability, and she still has all of her other spells. But yeah, I love the sequence, and then of course Gestal is there. They invade, basically the humans invade, and we already know kind of that they put this gate up to prevent humans from getting into the Esper world after this, and this was the event. So it's kind of neat because people have been talking about this in the story. NPCs have been talking about all this stuff as legend, and now you're seeing what actually happened. And then Gestal, that's his name, right? Gestal?
Yep, Gestal. Mm-hmm.
Gestal takes Terra away as a baby and, basically says he now is formulating a plan on how they can take over the world with her power and stuff. And so you find out how she got into the predicament at the beginning that she did. So that was neat. I really enjoyed that. And now you have Terra back finally, which is
it
probably
also
my
makes
favorite
me
character.
wonder about like the intervening time. Like, what happened to Terra that whole time? Was she in that mind suppressing device? Like, how did she? It opens a lot of questions for me.
That I mean, they raised her as a slave, basically.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And I just also very grim and dark. But something that they just wave their hands over, which I think they should. I didn't need to see scenes of her being beaten or anything like that as a child. That's just a place where my mind went of oh my God, they've had her all this time.
To your point about the impact of this on kids, especially with some of our audience members who played it when they were younger. I mean, for the kids, kids can also process quite a bit more than we realize sometimes. And the ones that were paying attention, they might have actually, one of the reasons this had an impact on them might be because it was so grim, where it's oh wow, I'm playing this 16-bit thing, but this is I'm watching a mature movie, like a rated R movie or something, right? But my parents don't know I am because it's this video game.
People definitely felt that about the cyan stuff with the Castle Domus or whatever it was, Doma, where he lost his family, and
that's a good
people
one.
said that had a big impact on them, in my stream. They were like, oh yeah, this I was like, I can't believe this went there. And then on the Spirit, the Phantom Train, besides to see the ghosts,
to see them, that's who. Total surprise. Yeah. I don't remember if we talked about it, but why was I looking this up? I must have been looking up. I don't remember what I was looking up. I wasn't looking for hints or anything, but I think I was looking up some spell thing or something anyway, I can't remember, but I found this thread where people were talking. Obviously when you do a search for Final Fantasy VI, you're not going to be surprised. It's one of the things that comes up is how so many fans believe that it is the game that needs a remake more than any of the others, and some people feel more than 7 needed one. and I actually kind of agree because I don't know what happens in 7. I know there's some infamous, events and a death and stuff that seems like a big deal that I'll probably never see. But I mean, seeing this one, I mean, if you can imagine this game.
We keep doing this podcast.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure.
Cut to a year later, Tim's like, I'm feeling like we need to do another JRPG.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to play the remake, but I won't, knowing me, I will not play the remake before I play the original. It's just against my being to do that. So I would
I have both. So, if you want to come here for, I was gonna say a weekend, but come here for a week.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll just mainline Final Fantasy VII for a week and do both.
Yeah, we could controller swap. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just like I would love to see this game with the themes we were just talking about, how they would handle, and I mean, don't like dumb it down, right? Don't water it down, sanitize it, yeah. Do it for real. And that some of these scenes, they would have to fix a few things for sure too, that would not translate well to high fidelity, but and Edgar would need a talking to. But I actually have a small, while I'm bringing it up, I have a small, I have a conundrum with Edgar, because we had an email a couple times ago, and this will be a short tangent, about how I said I hate Edgar as a character, like he's a not a great guy, and someone was saying you need to keep him because he's good character from a gameplay perspective, which I agree with, and I do still have him for that reason. But there is always that sort of nagging feeling in me of when do you make a decision to use a character who is, from a min-maxing perspective, very beneficial to use, but is a terrible person, and that sort of like, how do you, as a player, and obviously this is a single player game, so unless you're streaming, nobody really ever knows what you choose. But there is that sort of, I think, that sort of weird psychological and sort of moral responsibility in a way that we have of like, it's sort of like boycotting, right? Like, I'm going to not use Edgar, even though he is good for gameplay, because he is a douchebag. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And I just wanted to point that out of like, yes, it's good to min-max sometimes, but sometimes maybe make a decision for your own self as well. So we'll see if I keep him. I don't know. So far, he's still in my party. Somebody, I think, in another email alluded that there's later on some stuff that he says that isn't great. So maybe I'll kick him out at that point. But anyway, I don't know where I was.
But that's actually something else. That's another character we're going to meet in the future, I believe, that has the really weird interaction.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
More to come. More to come.
I can't believe we haven't met all the characters, to be honest. That's crazy.
Yep. There's more to come for sure. I mean, and this is nothing compared to, like, I think Suikoden 2 is the one that has, like, I don't know, 64 characters or something you can get in your party. Though I don't think you can get them all in one playthrough. I think it's a multiple playthrough kind of thing if you want to get literally everything. But yeah. So, yeah. One to keep in mind. It's one we get email about when we're talking about JRPGs. You should really check out Suikoden 2. So anyway.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe someday. Someday. Yeah, and then from there, so we get the flashback. We get the backstory, and then she basically says, I know what we have to do. We have to go to the gate, right?
Yes.
That's basically what Terra says, right? Is, now we have to go to the gate. I did.
Well, so they, like, the returners decide that they're going to, and Narche decide that they're going to attack the Empire, but they say they can't do it alone. So they say we need to actually convince the Espers to join in the battle. Yeah. And Terra says, she can help.
She's the only one.
She's the only one that can open the gate. Yeah.
I actually spent a little time there flying around to some places. Miranda and Tizen were two places people were specifically mentioning, like that they had good armor and weapons. They did not, so you can not feel bad that you didn't do that. I don't think I bought anything. I might have bought like a hat, some hats that I didn't have or something like that, but some helmets. But really, they were not all that beneficial. I was not super happy I went to either Miranda or Tizen, but it did give me more of a feel. These are cities that are under imperial occupation, and so you see the other side, like that other one we mentioned, which I think was Albrook, but maybe was the one that starts with an N that's not Narsha. Nikea or something like that.
There's one that I wrote down that I went to once I got that I actually was confused about where the gate was. So I went there first. It's the most eastern. It's called Thamasa or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't go there. Yeah.
And well, the only reason I bring it up is that it's definitely going to be a side story kind of thing because maybe there's other towns that do this, but nobody in the town knows you. And so none of the shopkeepers will actually sell to you.
It's gating because they sell better stuff.
Oh, maybe so. Yeah, I don't. So, I assume there's some quest or something you have to do. And there's also like a couple, like a graveyard there that you can't get to. I don't know. It's a very intriguing little spot. And it's like on this little peninsula, but I'm looking forward to...
That might be where we're going next. I don't know. I don't know where we're going next, but...
Oh, so you're saying because we're not supposed to be there, they just kind of hard gate you and everyone kind of doesn't talk to you?
Exactly, yeah.
Because you can
rather
go to
than have multiple tables of like things that they sell or whatever.
Okay.
I feel like that happened in Chrono Trigger as well. Like there was somebody who wouldn't sell to you, like the monster... There's like a monster town, and they wouldn't sell you stuff, but then when you went back later, you could get.
Oh, the monster town, brilliant! That whole thing.
Yeah,
great stuff. Well, the innkeeper does allow you to go there, but an NPC and right outside says, "Yeah, I don't know what's up with the innkeeper, but he doesn't like strangers." And then you go in, and he's like, "I don't like strangers, but you can stay here for 1,500 gold." And so I don't know.
Classic monster town.
Yeah, exactly. So, so then the gate stuff, right? And that's pretty much.
Yep. Yeah, and that's pretty much where we ended. Yeah, so you go to the gate, Kefka shows up and he laughs and he's, you were doing what we wanted all along. Ha ha ha. You opened it. And you open it and all the Espers pour through. It's sort of like it's almost shaped like the end of Raiders as well, right? You've got this steps up and like
like
things escaping. Yeah, like the spirits coming out of the ark. It's sort of similar to that.
And it looks like
I wouldn't have thought of that if you hadn't mentioned it in connection with the minecart, but it does remind me of that structurally, visually.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean, it's Pandora's box or the ark or whatever, and they're cleverly using this, I assume, the sprites for the Espers. So, they have that art, of course, right? So you can see these, like, one of them looks like a dragon, one of them, maybe a couple of them we've seen. Well, anyway, there you can tell that it's like the summons, right? The summons artwork flying through the sky, and Kefka gets knocked out of the way. And the one tidbit I want to mention en route there, there's the sort of maze-like pathways with the switches and the platforms that disappear and reappear. There's a couple sections there that I think it's a little bit of a lessons learned for me. They have there's times when it's the classic you're flipping a switch or impacting something that is off screen because a couple of the screens are scrolling screens, so you may not be looking at the thing you need to be looking at when you modify interact with something. Change the state, and so that's kind of a bit of a no-no, and so that got a little confusing at times. But other than that, it was kind of neat to have a little bit of navigation puzzle stuff. Although, once again, you're on these floating platforms that can disappear if you're at the wrong spot, and you're getting random encounters. And so by the time you're done with the random encounter, you come back, you might have forgotten what direction you need to run to stand on the platform that isn't going to fall away, and then you just got to really and it luckily never happened to me. I usually got where I needed to, but I could see it being pretty frustrating of like, wait, which direction was I running before that combat, So that's, I don't know. That's seems like the worst of all worlds of, basically a lethal. I mean, it's not an annihilation, but it's a neat idea that just doesn't translate well with the other systems, right? It didn't impact me very much.
because I just had enough good visual memory to be like, oh yeah, I know where it was headed. Like I just remembered which tile I wanted to go to pretty much whenever I got onto a board. But
well, I didn't have any failures either, but it still created anxiety for me,
you're walking over lava, dude.
Yeah.
You should feel some anxiety.
I guess, but not anxiety that I think is fair for the game. You know what I mean? Like it's punishing the player more than I think it should. But anyway, yeah, that's again related to the random encounters. They have sections where they turn random encounters off. They could have easily. So I guess that was part of the point, was to create more anxiety, but seems a little unfair.
Yeah, it's not necessary. It doesn't have to be there. I did like that section generally, just because it was very visually interesting. You had the bubbling lava, and you had that empty Imperial town beforehand as well, which kind of was creepy. Like there's nobody here, base, so like there's which sort of like also ties in with the Raiders thing of like, oh well, they've all left to go bring the Ark to the site, right? So there's that as well. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I quite like it.
It was fun, yeah, and that was the first time. Maybe I mentioned this in pre-show, but that was the first time where, at least for me, because of my strategy of using a lot of magic, now that all my characters have some kind of magic because of the Espers, I had to really be careful with what I used on a lot of the enemies in there, because they're either undead or they're some weird type. And Scan said some of them are vulnerable to Pearl. I'm like, and I don't even know what kind of damage Pearl is, but
I have no idea what that even is.
Super weird. Yeah. But anyway, so that was kind of fun to kind of suss out, which things go with what and who to use when. Like, for instance, some of my weapons they do additional fire damage or something, right? And so I had to actually either swap weapons or make sure I didn't hit certain enemies with that weapon because it would heal them. Same thing with like ice weapons and stuff. So that was starting to get some of that Final Fantasy, as I understand it, some of that Final Fantasy sort of resistance stuff that we were talking about. That's cool.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Whereas I'm just like,
you're just hitting things.
if I'm just hitting things, if brute force doesn't work, Tim, you're not using enough.
Yeah, I will say I did give Sabin. I did give Sabin the relic that allows him to dual wield. So now he has two claws like Wolverine, and he's for his physical attacks, and that definitely is pretty cool. So,
that's cool. Yeah. I'm not using Sabin. I'm using Cyan, Edgar, and Locke. Right. So I don't have him, but I am I'm using two hands with his sword, which is like a katana, I guess.
Yeah. I had
to do more damage with him.
I had Edgar doing that for a while, but I wasn't using physical attack, so it seemed like not as useful. But
no, definitely. If you're leaning on the magic, I wouldn't think it would make sense. So okay. All right, well, it is time then, first of all, for me to talk about what we're going to play to next time. I think what we're going to do is play to, I'm just going to say a big change in the world. I'm not going to say more than that. You'll know it when you see it, Tim. I think that's a good chunk. After that, the game is going to open up again. If it's only, a couple hours away, then by all means, play some of the more open stuff on the other side if you want. And we can talk about what we did, but at least get to that point, and it will be unmistakable. So,
okay.
So you will know. You're like, oh, this was Brett was talking about. Yeah.
Okay. And now that you're saying that happens on the linear sort of quest lines,
it does. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still in a very linear part of the game. There are places we can go, but like you pointed out with Thamasa or whatever it's called, they're not really open for business. Like they don't have anything new to say. There's no additional stories to pursue there. It's just whatever. If you've been there before, you've already seen what they have to say. So we are sort of building to something else at this point. So.
Got it.
We will see that. So now let's turn to feedback. Thank you for everyone who's been sending email to devgameclub@gmail.com. We've been getting quite a few here, and I will let you, of course, as always, take the first one.
Okay. Subject is Final Fantasy VI, My Secret Shame, from Mikael Danielsson. Hello, sir. Once again, greetings, gentlemen. I was delighted and not just a little surprised to see Final Fantasy VI being the next game on your list. I've been a huge fan of the series ever since I got a hold of Final Fantasy VII in my mid to late teens. From Final Fantasy VIII and onward, I've gotten each and every new game pretty much on release, with a few exceptions, like Final Fantasy XI, the PS2 MMO, and some of the spin-offs consoles I didn't own. I have even played a ton of Final Fantasy XIV, the other MMO, which is, hugely popular right now, and can, as an aside, safely say best MMO I've ever played. Well, we'll see about that. Partly because you can switch class.
You need another one, Tim, right?
Yeah, partly because you can switch class in-game and therefore only have to create one character to experience all the playstyles available. But most of all, it's a story that I really love. But I digress. With all the Final Fantasies I've played throughout the years, and being the obsessive completionist I am when it comes to games, Final Fantasy VI remains one of the very few mainline Final Fantasy games I've yet to finish. The only other one being Final Fantasy III, the actual Final Fantasy III. Yeah, I just don't follow any of that, but I'll take his word for it. We're
playing the U.S. Final Fantasy III right now.
Right,
also
right.
known as Final Fantasy VI.
Got it. I see. That's what you meant. And while I don't really have a good excuse, considering all the time I've had to pick it up again, the main reason for me not finishing it has been that I've lost my save file on no less than 5 separate occasions, 3 times due to save file corruption or broken memory cards, and twice due to hard drive crashes. Each time I probably lost about 20 to 40 hours of gameplay, the whole completionist thing coming back to bite me, I suppose. Each time it took quite a while for me to return to the game, but since I have no intentions of not listening to the upcoming episodes, and will certainly not be spoiled by the content of the game, seeing how I've managed to avoid that all of this time, I guess I've got no other options than to actually finish the game in the following weeks. So thanks for giving me the push I sorely needed. Sorry for the long-winded email. I'm off to boot up my PS3 now, and this time I'm making a bloody copy of my save files. Stay safe and all the best, Mikael. Well, we're glad that we can help.
That's what we're here for. It's a public service we offer, forcing people to play their games that they've tried so many times.
A very specific circumstance for you, sir, and it sucks to lose save games of any kind, not the least of which 5 times.
Yeah, I hate redoing 5 minutes of content.
Yeah. Oof. Obviously he's played 40 hours, so he knows a lot of it. But the only thing I'll say is this game is very good. Like, I feel like there's a lot ahead of him, and he's such a fan. I don't know. Maybe it'll be smooth sailing for him. I hope. But yeah, I replaying content is a bummer. I'm not trying to talk him out of it because he's probably already started on PS3. But I do kind of wish that I was. Can you save the state anywhere, right? On the SNES Classic?
It's the Classic, right? Yeah, you can just...
So you can do that.
4 save slots for every game that you can just save wherever you want. You hit the reset, and it goes to the saving menu instead of resetting it, yeah. Yeah,
I kind of wish I had that, to be honest, because there's been some times when, life is just not convenient enough for me to keep playing to find a save point. And they're a little bit farther apart than I want them to be, or I can't get to the overland. So I'm wondering if, that save state thing might be especially if he wants to make sure he doesn't lose, he's playing as efficiently as possible. But he's probably already, the PS3 version is good and in all other ways. So, but it's fine. But anyway, yep. Good luck, sir. Keep us posted.
Yep, good luck. Yep, keep us posted for sure. I've got one here from Zach. The subject is, love that you are playing Final Fantasy VI. Hey, gentlemen, hope that you are doing well and looking forward to this playthrough. might play along as well. I wanted to share my story with this game. My older brother, by 7 years, used to play this game, and I was so enamored, I constantly begged him to play. When he finally did give in, it was only to play a certain area in the end game to boost his party to level 99.
Jerk.
He had a grind bot called his younger brother. I didn't care, though. I was 6 years old and kicking in teeth. Ever use or get used yourself in this way? Side note, I also once accidentally saved over my brother's Baldur's Gate 2 save as he was over 40 hours in. Quick thinking, he simply did a PC restore to revert to the day prior and kept his save. Thank the devs now for multi-auto save. Zach. Yeah, wow. He would not have forgiven you losing 40 hours of Baldur's Gate 2. That game is long.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 1 is long. Baldur's Gate 2 is madness. Anyway, I don't know. Did you ever, find somebody to be your Sherpa in that way?
I mean, there's there's always been those moments of
MMO stuff,
right?
Yeah.
Where you have someone power leveling you or what have you, but I don't tend to do that because I don't know. I just have one of those things about playing my own game, and living through it, versus. Especially, I mean, I don't play a lot of other than MMOs. I don't play a lot of grindy games anyway, So, even in RPGs,
I've certainly, I've never had to lean on somebody else to build up my character. I am, after all, the person who played 2 hours of the beach volleyball scene on Kingdom Hearts hard, so that I would level up.
Oh my god! Oh, that's right. Jesus.
10 XP.
Well, you also
time
played that
whatever.
game 3 times or something. So it's
I played it 3 times. Like I finished it 3 times before you had
that
finished
is
it once.
just not. No, don't. That's kids at home. Don't try it. Don't.
I wasn't working at the time, so I had time in my life.
That's fair. I'm not going to shame you for it. That's I do. I mean, I still play WoW, so I can't complain. I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't talk, but anyway, yeah.
Hit the other one I gave you. We still have
okay.
some time. We can get another couple in.
Yep. In-engine cinematic storytelling on the SNES from James Roberts. So, James, gentlemen, I may have given away in my last half dozen emails to you that I am a Chrono Trigger nut. That's right, James. He's the Chrono Trigger guy.
Yep.
During your coverage of that game. I also am a bit of a Final Fantasy VI nut, so I have been enjoying playing along with you these past few weeks. Your discussion recently about how Final Fantasy VI handles storytelling in engine, for example, the in-battle scenes where Locke and Edgar learn Terra can use magic, has reminded me of another Square RPG on the SNES that took this art in another direction. In Super Mario RPG, they also handled action sequences and dialogue within the same modes that they handle battles or traversal. However, Mario is portrayed as a classic RPG silent protagonist instead of having the speaking characters around him just infer his dialogue. Like many games with silent protagonists, Square did something fun. All of his dialogue is delivered in pantomime.
It's pretty great.
I didn't see that coming. This ranges from simple head nods / shakes to elaborate costume changes. What? Pratfalls, slapstick, and stage stunts. I have included a link to such a scene so you can see what I'm talking about. A link is here. I could go on about other ways they reshaped and simplified the JRPG genre with this game to attract a new audience, not to mention how they blended Mario action and platforming into a JRPG. But I suspect you may cover the game in the future and will want to discover that for yourselves. I hope you give it a look someday. I have always marveled at how Square managed to create such different characters within the same genre on the SNES. It's amazing how much they managed to squeeze out of that hardware. Have a good weekend, James Roberts. Yeah, you're a fan of that game, right?
Oh, yeah, I liked it a lot. Yeah, I mean, I like the Mario RPGs generally, but that one in particular is 16-bit. There were a couple things I found a little frustrating. There were some things that were, there were some things I just had difficulty doing. Like they were just timing things, or like there was one section, I remember one section that was quite difficult to get through, and it was because it sort of had action elements in it, and in my JRPGs I don't always expect that. And so I was like, oh my god, and I was streaming it besides, so I was, my attention was not 100%, so it was a whole thing. But yeah, it was it was a great game. It was a lot of fun. And the pantomime is hilarious. Like he'll tell what has happened to some other character, and like, yeah, he'll change into that character briefly,
I'm watching it now, actually. I clicked on James's link and he just turned into Bowser and Peach, and
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really
it's very funny. And it's like all of his dialogue, when he'll run up to somebody, they'll be like, oh my god, what happened? And yeah, he'll do those sorts of things. It's hilarious. Very good. Thanks for sending that in, James. That is a very funny. It didn't occur to me to include that as sort of another way things can be done. It's investing, and they can use other art assets again, right, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so it's clever reuse. They make it very clear what he's.
I didn't realize Square made those for Nintendo.
Square made that one, yeah. Just that one, I think.
Okay.
Because that was the last. That was the only one on the SNES before the split, before they went to PlayStation.
Right. Of course.
Right,
yeah.
but then that carried forward with, the 1,000-Year Door and a number of others, right. There was just one this year, right? Or last year, Origami King, something like that.
Yes, pretty recent.
Yep. So, all right, I'll take the last one here, and then we'll send you on your merry way so you can strand some death. Subject, ATB boss retaliation and the Opera House, from Sam. Hello. At the end of last episode, you were talking about... Sorry, this is not necessarily... the next episode from that. At the end of a prior episode, you were talking about what the game might be trying to teach you in the whelk fight. Final Fantasy IV was the first game with active time battle, and also featured a first boss with a dangerous counterattack state. And as I recall, no other bosses with this mechanic. I actually came with this knowledge in advance from obsessively reading Nintendo Power's game previews, and so I didn't have to learn about ATB in-game. Final Fantasy VI has an excellent tribute album, and I wanted to share the Opera House track with you. It's fantastic and definitely worth your 9 minutes. The rest of the album is great too. I should warn you that the album title has mid-game spoilers. Yes, so Tim, you should not check out this link. It will maybe give away something that we're going to play this next time. It is cool sounding though, so after you've gotten to that point, I'll forward the link. He says, glad you guys are enjoying the game. Once you're done, you may want to check out Final Fantasy IV. On the whole, it's probably not as good as Final Fantasy VI, but it remains my favorite and has a brisk 25-hour playtime. It might be Squaresoft's favorite too, considering it's been remade at least twice and had DLC added during the Wii era. Final Fantasy VI to this day still has no good remake, and I understand the SNES version is still considered the best. Sam. Yeah, that's because Final Fantasy IX is the spiritual successor to 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could probably see that. A lot of stuff there.
Yeah, it is there. Yeah, I mean, we didn't
a lot of echoes.
We didn't really plan it, but it sort of ironically is. Yeah, we're playing the two that seem fairly. I can see how they're fairly related. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I think the further you go back, the more the Dungeons and Dragons influences are clear. I mean, especially in the first one is like obvious. I mean, it plays like an early Ultima or Wizardry or something like that.
Like early Dragon Quest.
Not with the first person, exactly, right? So it's very clear, where they're taking their mechanics. And, it's kind of interesting. Somebody last week, I think, was saying about how it's like a bunch of artists wanted to make a JRPG. But there's also like they've drifted away. I mean, D&D feels that way sometimes, especially the earlier ones where it's like, well, we need to make a system for this. Here's a table. It's like it makes no sense. Like, I mean, we were just talking in my campaign, which is 3.5e, where like the barbarian's rage is linked to his constitution modifier or something like that. It's like 2 plus like, and it's just like, who does that? Like, that's not helpful. Like, I can't remember that, it's, and so it's funny. Those sorts of things, where you're just like, they just shoehorn this thing in, and it's not coherent or consistent. Right. I mean, you can see where it comes from. It's like, well, we want to pull in this new stat thing we're doing with the attributes, but, anyway.
Well, and I think I think with third edition and thus 3.5 was definitely, there were some big shifts happening from second, but I feel like, I mean, neither of us have played fourth edition, but I feel like, the first few editions, there was kind of like adding to a foundation, and kind of, I don't want to say band-aiding, but, kind of like adding these things to sort of like, evolve it in an iterative sense. And I've enjoyed fifth so far, because I feel like they kind of more holistically looked at 5 and kind of like, how are we going to even change some of the foundational aspects? So it's a little bit more cohesive, it feels like. 3 was, I think, as well, but it still had some of that, math was important. Hold
over jank. Like, there's definitely combat is still too complicated. The number of rules that are that I forget. I can't remember them.
Sure.
And there's just so much, and I'll be looking things up because, like, oh, how does this work again? Because it doesn't happen often enough, and it's not obviously systemic. It's like specific to this one case, like you do this thing, right? So that's you're right about that. Anyway, it's just interesting to see how there have been those sorts of echoes. It's like, well, whenever you're designing something nobody's done before, you're figuring it out, and it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for a while, because nobody gets it right the first time. If you get it right the first time, it probably was fairly obvious and anybody could have done it. So that's not entirely true, because Rubik's Cube, brilliant. Tetris, brilliant. Got it right the first time. Didn't need any more. So there are exceptions, but Spelunky, my opinion. It's a great game. Still playing it every day.
I know.
That is our show. Trying to find the place where I say the things at the end of the show. You can send reviews, of course, to the Apple Podcasts app or whatever podcast app you use. If it's not one that we have registered to get emails from and stuff like that, or RSS feeds, and we don't read it on the show, just go ahead and shoot us a mail. Tell us where to find it. We love to read all of those, and we love to get them. It helps us reach new listeners. And of course, as we mentioned previously, you can reach us at devgameclub@gmail.com, as those fine gentlemen did. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com or on Twitter at devgameclub, where you can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
The man who continues to strand death across America. I am actually currently playing at twitch.tv/Brett Duvel Dragon Quest Builders, which I play weeknights, and then on the weekends I play whatever we're playing currently, which at the moment is Final Fantasy VI. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo is by Mark Garcia. Have fun knowing you've been working for us this week. And good night.
Good night.